Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Zapinski. It's been an interesting week and not too much action going on here. Thank goodness. But there's always something, right? There's always something. And sometimes we need to look outside of our own lives to appreciate what we have. I saw a film last night with my children. It's called 2012. And it's a disaster film by that German director, Roland Emmerich, who did a couple other disaster films. Godzilla, I think he also did Independence Day. But this is called 2012, and it's about the end of the world. And it actually came out in 2009, and it's all about the governments and the higher-ups in the world knew that the Earth's core was melting, and then all the Earth was shifting. The Earth is shifting, so it's almost like the fault lines are moving along, and you see the Earth caving in all these different places all along California, and the highways collapse, and the high skyscrapers collapse, and no one knew, and the higher ups didn't tell anybody because they had these arcs. They built these arcs, and only certain people, I think 400,000 people in the world, got tickets to be saved in these arcs. These are the millionaires, the billionaires, and the scientists, and all the important people to carry on civilization. And it's really good. It's a long movie. It's more than 2 hours, and the effects are amazing. And you see that tsunamis and all the oceans also taking over, huge tidal waves, and it's very gripping. And okay, you might say, okay, that's science fiction. You don't need to get all excited about it, Natalie. It's just a movie. But things are happening in the world right before our eyes today that we never could have imagined. Things change in life, and you have to appreciate the order and the safety and the good, because we're all so small. We're all just small individuals, and Hashem is in charge, and we can only do as much as we can do. And you have to make good decisions. That's whatever you can within your power. Make good decisions in your lives. And be close to the people that are important to you, and do what you can to help others. Okay, we have a great show for you today. We'll be right back. How did a nice Jewish girl from Delaware end up living in Israel? Shalom, I'm Natalie Zapinski. Join me on my show, Returning Home. Meet different people who have moved to Israel. Hear their personal stories, their highs, their lows, and everything in between. Each week, we talk to experts on immigration and the process of moving to Israel. Listen to Returning Home every Thursday, only on Israel News Talk Radio. Welcome to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski. With us today is Arthur Miller. Arthur made Aliyah in 2004. He was in his 60s at the time, his late 60s. He came with his wife, Ronnie, and he wrote a book. And his book is called Because It's Israel, an Aliyah Odyssey. And he reached out to me. His agent actually reached out to me, sent me a copy. I read it this past Shabbat, and it's very good. Arthur, are you with us today? Are you with us?
Yes, I am, Natalie.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Okay, so this is a really good story. Arthur is a very good example. He and his wife came, I guess, right at their retirement. And we're going to ask Arthur, because I read the book, so I know all about his life, but I'm going to let him tell a little bit about it to all of you listening today. So, Arthur, why don't you tell us when your Aliyah adventure began?
It began right after the Six-Day War. At that time, before then, trips to Israel were not that prevalent as they are today. And it was the first time that so many the Kotel, Hebron, and all these sites were opened up to Jews. And as I remember those days, all the travel agents were trying to get people to go to Israel to see all these sites. And I had just graduated law school, studying for the bar exam, and I booked a trip for my wife and myself 2 days after the bar exam. And we went, and within 5 minutes of the time that I got off the plane, I had fallen in love with Israel. And it became a dream of ours that someday we would live in Israel. But unfortunately, life sometimes gets in the way, and things don't go as easily as you would hope it would be. And we would come here once or twice a year for the next 35 years, and then finally, and always planning, and always in the back of our mind, we were coming to Israel. And then in the summer of 2003, my wife, God bless her, said, no more. She needs a date when we're making Aliyah. She can't take this, we'll get there when you're tired of working.
Okay. Arthur, you're leaving out a small part, actually a pretty big part. Now, you have 4 children, and you were doing these trips for these 35 years with your children. Didn't one of them move here during that time?
Yes, my daughter moved here. It's as you read in the book, we had a family tragedy, and my father and my nephew, God bless them, were killed in a car crash in Israel, and I came for the Shiva, and my daughter met her husband, who was a friend of my nephew, and it was almost love at first sight. And my daughter graduated high school, and she came to Israel, and she stayed. And now I have she's my only Israeli child that I have here, with 5 grandchildren, and I have 3 children that are in the States. And they always knew we were going to move to Israel. There was never any doubt about it. So it was difficult. It really is difficult, but when it was your life's dream, it was our life's dream to live in Israel, and thank God the dream came true. So, and we've had absolutely no regrets about it whatsoever.
Okay, now Arthur's book, all of you listening, it's really good because Arthur began his life in New York, and he relocated to Massachusetts, and really had a like he exactly what he just said. He always wanted to come, and there are a lot of you out there who always want to come, and always things come up. The thing that struck me about Arthur's book is they had this plan, I think, a date. They even had a date, something like 2003, the end of the year, maybe December, and his wife, Roni, got sick, suddenly, something very strange, sepsis or something, and she was in the hospital. Right? And I think there was some kind of delay. And then after that, something happened to Arthur, and he got sick, and he needed like a triple bypass. And he told his doctor, something like that. You correct me. It was something like that. Arthur said, I'm not delaying the trip. Fix me what you got to do now, but I'm going. And I thought that was a very good point for all of you listening out there who wait and who come up with...
I was having an argument with the doctor on the operating table. I said, he said, you're going to have to postpone your trip. And I said, no, I want the United States insurance to pay for it. I didn't want to stick Israel with the bill. I'm going. You have to get me healthy to make the trip. So
Right. And I loved it because you did not let an excuse push Israel away. You kept your eye on the ball. And you got here. And there are too many people who do the opposite, who every little hurdle that comes up really does knock them down, and they never come here. You did the opposite. You pushed, and I think that's great. It's a great example. It's a shining example of people, at the end of your career came here. And you mentioned this in your book, why you should consider Israel instead of considering Florida. And I'd like you to maybe talk about that a little bit.
Well, I have many friends who go through the getting ready to retire. I moved to Israel when I was 60, which might have been a little bit younger than many people are ready to retire. But in any event, I've heard all sorts of excuses, including the ones that we had, families in the States, oh, it's so much easier in Florida. You don't have to learn a new language. You're not adjusting to a new culture. And I just had difficulty understanding it. And these are religious people, and I don't understand how deeply religious people don't recognize the biblical, the Torah obligation to live in the land of Israel. And so I've always gotten into arguments with them when I was visiting in the States, and I would just say, I don't know why you would want to walk New York streets or Miami Beach streets when you could be walking in Jerusalem and walking in the Holy Land, and so that basically is something that we've gone through, and I haven't lost any friends over it, but I try and get people to recognize how beautiful life has been for us in Israel. It's just thank God we've had 53 wonderful years together, but the last 16 and a half years since we've lived here are really the best years of our lives. We've really enjoyed it. Notwithstanding the last year we've been confined to a house practically, it's still been wonderful. So,
well, that's good to hear. And I wonder, when you tell people that, well, why would you want to walk the streets of Miami Beach when you could be walking the streets of Jerusalem? What do they say?
They really don't have it. It's always it's too expensive to live in Israel. And I had one friend that I was arguing with, and he's telling me he couldn't afford to move to Israel because he couldn't afford housing. And I said, I know what your apartment, your co-op is selling for in New York. Believe me, you could sell it and buy a wonderful house. And he said, he couldn't find what he was looking for at Rehavia. So I said, there are other places besides Rehavia in Israel that are very, very lovely. And he admitted that he really didn't want to live in Israel. He only wanted to live in Rehavia. If he couldn't live in Rehavia, he was going to go to Florida. So, you can't argue it with some people, and I understand it's not easy. As you recall in the dedication of the book, I mean, my family has been victims of many of the tragedies, the difficult parts in Israel, terrorist attacks and so forth. But nevertheless, it's just been the most wonderful experience that we've ever had. And as we said, it's been a dream, and we just lived it. We lived our dream, and I thank God every day that we were able to, and just hope that He'll give us many more years to continue to enjoy it. So,
right. Well, that's good to hear, and I think you're right. I had a woman write in to me after last week's show that she's had this dream to live in Israel her whole life. She's been here several times, but when she looks at the real estate and the apartments in the newspaper, and I think she's in New York or New Jersey, she said that it's just too expensive, and they're all very fancy and exclusive, and she just doesn't have that kind of money. And I said to her, what you're reading is for the fancy, expensive places, but there are a lot of places that aren't like that will not advertise in a fancy New York newspaper. It's a shame that people are, being held back by that, and it's wrong. There's many affordable choices of housing here.
Absolutely. And I have some friends who are not in that upper income bracket, and they live all over the country, and even if you go through Nefesh B'Nefesh, which we did not do because we went really before they were that well organized, but they will send you to places not necessarily in the heartland of the country, and they're still just beautiful places. We haven't traveled around in the last year and a half or so, but we just love to drive around the country. We go on trips and tours, and I always say the scenery is just so biblical. It's just so beautiful that regardless of where you're living, it's just a personal pleasure to be able to be a citizen of Israel. Plus, I get to vote every couple of months. It's really wonderful. So.
Well, you have a very special attitude. There are a lot of people who come here, they really only see the bad side, Arthur. They see the challenges. And we're going to take a break in a little bit, but when we come back, I do want you to be honest with me and tell us some of the challenges. I mean, you're making it sound like a dream, and it's not a dream. So when we come back, I'm going to ask you some of the challenges. And I want you to also tell me what you do every day, because, when people come in their later years and they're English speakers, what do you do to fill up your day? What do you do to fill up your time to keep busy? You're not working. You don't need to worry about an income necessarily. You can do volunteer work. If you're here with children, you can help your children. But if you're alone, what do you do? So stay with us. Stick around, everybody. We're going to be right back after these messages. Stay with us, okay?
Okay.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Sapinski. We're continuing our talk with Arthur Miller, who, as I was just telling you, wrote the book Because It's Israel and Aliyah Odyssey. And Arthur and I were just talking off the air a little bit about some of the downsides of living in Israel. And I did mention this before we went to break. Arthur has personally been affected by some acts of terror and some horrible tragedies, and I just would like him to talk about that a little bit, because he just said something very interesting. He said it could happen anywhere. So, Arthur, can you... Well,
we've had, the hardest one, obviously, was my father. And please, if I choke up on this, you'll have to forgive me. My father and my nephew were killed in a car crash in Israel. My father came here right after my mother had passed away to visit my brother, who just had open heart surgery a week before, and he was here for several weeks, and then there was unfortunately a car accident, and both of them were killed. I've had my son-in-law, the one that my daughter met at the Shiva, and 7 of his cousins were in the Sbarro, killed in the Sbarro bombing in 2001. And my cousin's son, my cousin Ezra Schwartz, was a CAP student from Massachusetts who was killed in a shooting in Israel. And could it happen any place? It's one of the risks of living in Israel. But it's nobody ever said living here was going to be easy. It's just God commanded us to do 613 mitzvahs. I hold, I guess, like the Rambam, that living in Israel is one of those mitzvahs. And I don't understand. You just have to, you do the mitzvahs, and what comes with it comes with it. But that, you just have to, my voice is cracking, I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's fine.
But, it's unfortunate, and nobody knows why. But it still hasn't. It's a problem living in Israel.
Yes.
Grants, but it could happen any place.
Do your children? I mean, you have 3 children in America. Did they tell you to come home?
No, they always knew. In fact, the only people that ever really told me to come home, I remember in my office, which was a partner in a law firm in Worcester, Massachusetts. I was the only Jew there at the time. When my daughter called distraught, and she said that 7 of her husband's cousins were killed in a terrorist act, and I left the office to go home to be in touch with her. When I came the next morning, one of my partners, who's never understood how I could let my daughter live there, came in and he says, "I hope now you're going to go to Israel and bring your daughter home." And I said, "You people just don't understand. When I hear something like that, it makes me want to be, I feel guilty living in America, and it makes me want to go to Israel even more. And I'm not bringing her home. I'm going to join her." So that has been our attitude really since that very first trip to Israel. It's just, I can't describe the feeling when I got off the plane. I just saw my country, and I just wanted to live here. And as I said, it took us 35 years to get here. I had so many friends who, as you said before the break, plan on living in Israel, but it just doesn't work out for them, and for whatever reason. And they're still, they didn't even live long enough to make it. So I hate to be so maudlin, but that's, get here while you can and enjoy it. Like I said, we were 60, we were able to travel around the whole country and just absolutely enjoy ourselves. It's been wonderful. So.
Oh, good. Tell me, what did someone like you, 60, now you're 68, I don't know, 70.
So, yeah, I've been there for 16 years, so if you do the math, it comes out.
Okay, sorry, all right. Yeah. All right, 70,
okay.
I wrote down here. But what do you do? Now, there's, it's a very young country, there are playgrounds everywhere, kids running around. What do people in your shoes do to fill their day?
We were very fortunate. We moved, and at the time we came here, Beit Shemesh was a very young community, and most of the parents of my daughter's friends, they've all retired and they moved to Beit Shemesh. We have a very, very active senior group. It's been suspended for the past year because we can't get together, but we have activities every week. We go on tours. We have over 170 or had 175 plus members. So we travel around the country. Plus, I wrote a book. Actually, I just finished the second book.
Right, nice.
And who knows? Maybe I'll try a third one if they don't let us out, or if I'm confined to the house for a longer period of time.
Well, so
we
good.
Travel around the country.
You keep busy.
Wonderful. Yes.
Good. I mean, there are things to do, but I mean, specifically, like, that's you. What does your wife do? What do all the women do when? Tell me, besides traveling.
My wife goes to classes constantly. She goes to exercise constantly. She's a fitness buff. I'm not. I used to be, but not anymore. And so we all keep busy because we have activities. And during this past year, when we've been locked down, in addition to writing a second book, I've been showing movie programs to the senior group. Twice a week, I put on either movies of Jewish interest, Broadway plays, concerts, and we Zoom it. And on Sundays, I keep occupied.
Yeah,
and of course,
I mean,
books take an awful lot of time. It's unbelievable how long it takes to finish a book, start to finish. So it's going to take a good year and a half to do one, and that keeps you busy. So
yeah, for sure.
That's never been my problem. So.
Yeah, that's good. This book you wrote is great because you have this one section in here with all these pictures through the years, and you see you getting when you were younger, and all these dated commercials and ads, and your children, and it's really great. And there's one picture I'm looking at now, and it says, "Our draft is your draft. Lone Soldier's Home, Beit Shemesh." What is your connection with that?
We have a Lone Soldier's Home in Beit Shemesh, and we don't really do much for it anymore. But when they were still getting the home built, I happened to have one of my clients who gave us a very, very nice donation, which helped fund the operations for a period of time. And but that's the picture that you're seeing. There was a fundraiser where the home got some local brewer to bottle beer with the Lone Soldiers. And so that's the easiest way to contribute money to any organization, is to buy a couple of six-packs. This was wonderful.
Right.
So.
Cute. When you started your book at the very beginning, and I know we're running out of time, but you talked about your mother and how she was very involved in, I think, the Jewish National Fund, and she saved the route of David Ben-Gurion when he first came to America and was in a parade.
She was very, very Zioni. As I said, I used to have stories how she would go out and collect money. She'd go up at night, leave my brother, who's 3 years older than me, go up to Madison Square Garden and raise money for the Irgun, stand with flags and raise money. And then she joined, at that time I think it was called Mizrahi Women's Organization, and she was the tree chairman for almost 50 years, and she just sold literally thousands of trees in Israel, and I would assist her. And so from the very beginning, I was involved in raising money for Israel, and my mother was our shining example of just loving Israel.
She really was. I'm really beautiful what you wrote about her, and she would be very proud of you here today. And it's all because of her, really. She instilled a lot of that in you.
Yes, she did. I give her all the credit. And it was just an inspiration to me. And even in my second book, which is completely different from this book, I think even more exciting, I give her a lot of credit for the... I spent many years back in the early 70s defending... at that time, I was not a criminal lawyer, but I defended... hundreds of kids from the JDL who were working for Soviet Jewry and getting themselves into trouble. And she was my inspiration there, too, because she was just... but my stories under that one should be out soon. I'm hoping the book will come out by the end.
Well, yeah, because you probably... that's probably a very different book, and that would be very interesting. You mentioned that briefly in your introduction.
I'll send you a copy.
Oh, I would love it. That would be great. Okay. That would be great. Well, thank you so much. Arthur, we are just about out of time, and really great to hear from you. Regards to your wife, and we'll talk again.
Okay, God willing.
Wonderful.
I hope so. Take care, and Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom to you. Great. Okay, next up, we have our friend Aleeza, who made Aliyah last week. She, I believe, is out of her Corona hotel. She's with her 5 kids and her husband. We're going to get her on the line and see what's up with her. We're going to try to follow this girl because I've been looking for someone to follow, and she's allowed us to broadcast her Aliyah story week by week. And we're lucky, she doesn't mind, and we're going to be in her face every week. So we'll be right back after these messages. Stick around.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Bentako, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany is but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
Welcome back to Returning Home. I'm your host, Natalie Zapinski, and joining us today, as I just mentioned, was our friend Aleeza Bracha Ben Shalom, who landed last week. Aleeza, welcome to the show.
Woohoo! Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Good. All right. Give us an update. Last week, you were in the hotel.
Last week we were in the hotel. We were in Bidud. We got out, thank God, on Sunday, but we didn't get out of Bidud. We just got out of the hotel, and it wasn't just like leave the hotel. It was like hotel's shutting down. Everybody's out of quarantine. Time to go.
Oh.
So we packed our bags. Yeah. I mean, some people got transferred to a new hotel if they had no place to go. We, thank God, had really good friends. They loaned us their apartment, and we are in Yerushalayim, and it's really exciting. So right now you are with me, and we are on our way we rented a car. Today we got out of Bidud, which I have to tell you, it's a whole balagan, but we got out of quarantine, and we got the special ishur, the paperwork that said, and I had to have friends who were, fluent in Hebrew to call to figure out, because there was a lot of moving parts here. Israel's a lovely yet interesting place, and all of the phone lines that you call, it's in Hebrew. And they're like, no, just press the button for English. I was like, they don't give you that option. They tell you.
That's right. That's right. So let's slow down a second. There are a lot of words here that people don't know. Bidud is quarantine, and balagan is a big mess. But let's go on.
So some things are a big mess, but it's a big, beautiful mess. And we are actually in the car. We rented a car today. We got out of quarantine, and we walked for 45 minutes, which was lovely. We went for a beautiful walk. We stopped and got ice cream on the way. The kids are happy. The dog is happy. And we're right now on the way to pick up. We have 2 big kids that have been here since October, and we haven't seen them in 4 months. And we are crazy.
So excited. I'm sure you're very excited.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a really interesting week. And there's, I kind of thought there was a lot of paperwork to do before we got to Israel, right? Their passports and the visas and nefesh b'nefesh and all of the moving parts from America. And I was in my brain thinking, oh, you know what? When I get to Israel, we're going to relax. It's going to be great. We're going to be home. All that paperwork is going to be behind us. And then I'm so glad I wasn't really paying attention. We get here, and I was like, oh, right. Oh, you have to sign up for health insurance. Oh, you have to go to the bank. Oh, you have to go to all these offices to do all these different moving parts. And our situation is a little more interesting because we have the 3 little guys that are with us. They're not so little, but they're 7, 9, and 11. And so 5 of us made Aliyah, and we're all on one document. And then our daughter is going to join us, but she didn't officially make Aliyah. So now I have to actually do the Aliyah paperwork to make Aliyah from Israel for her. But my son, who's 17, back up, he's 17. He has to make Aliyah on his own. He's actually not included under our Aliyah. There's different, if you caught him at 16, it would be different than 17. But he's actually going to make Aliyah as, a single kid making Aliyah. And he gets all of his own rights and own benefits, and he's not allowed to be under our Tudat Oleh, our official
right, your document. Okay. So that's it's a technicality. And it's actually working out. It's a benefit. What a surprise!
It's a benefit because he gets, So he gets all the benefits of a new immigrant that we're getting, but he gets it himself. And then for him, the benefit is also that it's going to get delayed, and it won't even really start until after high school and then after the Army. So
so while we have you live,
but not immediately.
We have you. I want you to tell me what those benefits are. So
financially, when you land at the airport, they just hand you a bunch of cash in an envelope, and that's your first installment of payments. And they make payments to you for, it looks like there's 6 months of payments, but there's the initial one at the airport and then a second one. It comes out to about 7 months or so, or 8 months of payments-ish.
Well, what are we talking? What are we talking, Aleeza? Tell us when you say payments. What are we talking? $100, 100 shekel, what?
No, I'm trying to do the math. We got 57.50 shekel. So
that's almost 6,000 shekel. Okay, that's amazing.
But that's for a family of only 5 of us. That's not including, our daughter. And our other son. That's about $1,800 for the first payment. It looks like it's either $20,000 or $30,000. I'm not exactly sure. I've been looking over all the numbers, trying to figure it all out.
Okay. So
that's really helpful. Like, think about getting an apartment and everything you have to do. It's huge.
Yes. Wonderful. Okay. That is from Nefesh B'Nefesh, but that's through the Jewish agency. I mean, you had to apply for that.
I don't know that that's Nefesh B'Nefesh. That's the Sal Klita, but maybe you know the translation of that. I'm learning all these Hebrew words, and I don't know what everything means. I just know that you have to go to certain places, a different office, and get what you need to happen.
Yeah, Sal Klita means your basket of rights.
Okay, so I think it comes from the Israeli government, and Nefesh B'Nefesh helps you to process all the paperwork. Nefesh B'Nefesh is like an angel when you make Aliyah. They are like your guardian angel that completely watches over you and helps you with the entire process and all of the paperwork. It is simply a blessing.
Good. They're good. They're really helping. That's great.
So I'll tell you something interesting that happened this week. We had to get our final COVID test to get out of quarantine. So they said, you have to call your doctor to get a referral, a hafnaya. I learned a new Hebrew word. You have to get a referral, and then they're going to call you, and, then from the referral, then you can go. It was a whole process. So we called the doctor, and the doctor, he's like, I'm very busy. I don't really have time. I was like, wait, not just me. You have to help me with my kids. He's like, no, you have to call back and make an appointment for the kids. And I was like, no, I have you on the phone, please. I can't get through the automated system. Just help me. And then he said, well, where do you live? I said, well, we're in Jerusalem, but we're moving to Pardes Chana in the north. And he goes, oh, Pardes Chana. Oh, I love Pardes Chana. And he started talking to me for 3 minutes about Pardes Chana. And I'm like, wait, don't hang up the phone. I need you to do the referral. Like, you have 3 minutes for Pardes Chana, but you have 0 minutes to give me the referral. I was like, please help me with the kids. Please help make the referral. He's like, okay. So he makes the referral, and then an hour later he calls back. The tzaddik, a very amazing tzaddik, translates to righteous man, but a great man. He calls back. He goes, by the way, your kids are not registered. And I said, what? And there was a little glitch in the system. Long story short, we had to do another whole process, but he called back to tell me that. And it was it was just so kind that he went out of his way. I mean, he could have just, not done it and moved on with his life and, done nothing, and then I would have had to figure it out on my own, and we wouldn't have been out of quarantine today. But it was just so sweet. And everybody loves Pardes Chana. I've yet to meet somebody who's like, Pardes Chana. That's what, like, why would you go there?
No,
it's horrible. But nobody says that. Everybody thinks it's the most wonderful city.
Right. It is nice. I've been there only once. You made a good choice. And you have a very good attitude. Attitude is everything here. And these first few weeks, first few months, wow. You're doing it. You're doing it right. You're doing it with the right attitude. It helps.
I did have a little meltdown. But my husband, got me straight, and he's like, we got this. We're doing this, and it's a new adventure, and every day is a new adventure. Right. And my girlfriend said, listen, if you accomplish one thing, just one, it doesn't matter how many offices you call. If you accomplish one thing, you've done what you needed to do for the day. That's it. Move on. Tomorrow's another day. You'll try again.
Right.
And some
you
days
do change here.
A lot of progress. Some days was,
You'll change, and it's true. You just have to take a deep breath.
Yeah. We're walking around. The kids, we went on a walk, and we're looking and we're learning about the parking situation, because apparently there's different colors and signs on the street that tell you can park here, you can't park here. This is free parking, this is paid parking, and we're doing colors, Adom, Sahol, red, yellow, and we're learning colors, and we're learning about parking and all of those things.
Good.
So,
okay. Turn it into a game.
It's been an adventure. We're just having fun.
Yeah, it's important. Very important. Otherwise, you'll have
fun. Let's say that.
Yeah, if you don't do that, you're gonna have a meltdown every minute. You don't want that.
You could. You could. I did lay in bed the other day, and I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. I can breathe deeply. Just breathe. Okay, go take a shower. taking a shower is a good idea. Just like wash off all the thinking and all the schmutz, and you'll figure this out. You get it.
Look,
day at a time.
You have 2 arms and 2 legs, and you can move and you can walk, and your children also can move and walk. You don't have to change diapers, any of that, right? That's great. So you have a very easy compared to some people.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God. Yeah, they play with each other, and we have the dog. Yeah. We're getting through it one day at a time.
Okay, so we will be checking in with you. Good.
Amazing. Even the taxi drivers, they're lovely.
Okay. So we will check in with you. I hope next week we can catch up with you again. I don't know where you'll be, but you'll let me know.
Yeah, we'll probably still be in Jerusalem, but it's an adventure, so stay tuned. You got to tune in to find out.
All right, we are over and out. Thank you for joining us today. Goodbye to everyone, and have a great Shabbat.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.